So in this lecture video, we'll learn two more concepts called total expenditure and total revenue. So total expenditure is basically the total amount of money that you spend in buying something. So the way we calculate total expenditure is price multiplied by quantity. So price per unit multiplied by quantity. So if you buy 5 apples at a price of 10 taka per unit, that is per apple, then total expenditure would be 10 multiplied by 5, that is 50 taka. So according to the law of demand, we know if price goes up, quantity demand fall. So if price goes up, then what happens to the total expenditure? That is the question. So this actually depends on the elasticity of the good. So the elasticity of the good actually indicates the shift in the total expenditure. So suppose the demand is elastic. Demand is elastic. Remember, when demand is elastic, when PED is greater than 1. Right? So the demand is elastic, and if the price increases by 1%, the quantity demand will fall by more than 1%. So now assuming some numbers like price equals to 100, quantity equals to 100, then what would be the total expenditure? That would be 10 multiplied by 10, which is 1000, right? So total expenditure would be 1000. Now we have a new price. There's a price increase. So that, and the price increase was by 10%. So now the new price would be 110. And on the other hand, like let's say there is a, due to the price increase, there was a decrease in quantity demand, and that decrease was by 20%. So now the new quantity would be 80. So you calculate the total expenditure, you get 110 multiplied by 80, 8,800. So you see what's happening here is if the total if the price goes up when we are dealing with an elastic good, then the total expenditure actually falls, because with the old price and quantity demand, the total expenditure was 1000, whereas the new expenditure is 8,800. So there is a decline in the total expenditure. So now suppose the demand is inelastic. The demand is inelastic. Demand is inelastic means PD is less than 1. That's, so if the price increases by 1%, the quantity demand will fall by less than 1%. Again, assuming price equals to 100 and quantity equals to 100 units, the total expenditure would be 1000 taka. And assuming there is an increase in price by 20%, now the new price would be 120. And on the other side, like 10% decrease in quantity, so the new quantity demand would be 90. So the total expenditure, the new total expenditure would be 120 multiplied by 90, which is 10800, 10,800 taka. So here, if you see that when we are dealing with inelastic good, the total expenditure goes up. So the total expenditure increases if the price increase, if the price of an inelastic good increases, then the total expenditure increases. Now, total revenue is actually quite the same thing as total expenditure. However, just by definition, we say that the total revenue is actually the amount received by the seller of the goods. So if you are selling something, you generate revenues, right? So if you sell, let's say if you're selling 5 apples at 10 taka, then your revenue would be 5 multiplied by 10, 10 taka, 10 taka multiplied by 5 units of apple, then 50 taka is your revenue. So just like the total expenditure, the shifts in total revenue depends on elasticity. Now, assuming that company A is planning to increase their revenue by increasing their price, the good they sell has elastic demand. So it's an elastic good. The current price of unit is 100 BDD, and the quantity demand for their good is 100 units. So just from the formula of the total revenue, it would be 1000, 10 multiplied by 10, 1000. Now the question to you all is, will it be a good idea to increase their price? So I want you to think about this, like what would happen. So remember that in case of total expenditure, if the price increases, if the price of an elastic good increases, then the total expenditure falls. And if you look here, the total revenue and total expenditure is actually following the same thing, that price multiplied by quantity. So my question to you is that what would happen if there is a if there is an increase in the price? So do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea? So I want you to think about this. And here there are two graphs. So just to give you an idea, that this is actually the total revenue lost. This portion is the total revenue lost, and